Arrogance served cold. The black Mercedes pulled into Whispering Pines Resort's circular driveway with unnecessary speed, scattering gravel as it came to a halt. Vikram Malhotra adjusted his designer watch before stepping out, his Italian leather shoes touching the ground with the confidence of someone accustomed to making an entrance. At 32, he was already the youngest marketing director at Pinnacle Advertising, and he knew his worth down to the decimal point. "Not bad," he remarked to his colleagues, casting a critical eye over the resort's rustic elegance. "Bit quaint for a luxury establishment, but I suppose that's the charm they're selling." Priya, his assistant, nodded dutifully while typing notes into her tablet. "Their occupancy rates have dropped 15% in the last year. That's why they want our help with repositioning." "They're lucky to have us," Vikram said, striding toward the entrance where a young man in uniform rushed to collect their luggage. The resort's grand lobby featured soaring wooden beams and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the misty mountains beyond. Despite the impressive views, Vikram immediately spotted imperfections: the slightly worn carpet runner, the reception desk's outdated computer system, the lack of staff attention as they entered. "We've got our work cut out for us," he murmured, making a mental note to include these observations in tomorrow's presentation. After checking in, the marketing team gathered in the resort's restaurant for dinner. Vikram ordered an expensive bottle of wine without glancing at the menu, then proceeded to dominate the conversation with stories of his recent campaigns and industry connections. "And that's how I saved the Luxor account. $3 million in billing just like that." He snapped his fingers, pleased by the impressed looks from the junior associates. The restaurant was quiet for a Tuesday evening, with only a handful of other tables occupied. Their waitress, a young woman with her dark hair pulled back in a simple braid, approached with a pitcher of water. "Good evening," she said softly. "My name is Nisha. I'll be taking care of you tonight." Her voice was barely audible over Vikram's continuing story. "Obviously, they couldn't refuse once I showed them the numbers." Vikram continued, not acknowledging her presence as she carefully filled water glasses around the table. When she reached Vikram's glass, his emphatic hand gesture collided with her arm, causing water to splash across the tablecloth and onto his lap. He jumped up, his expensive trousers now sporting a dark stain. "What the hell?" he snapped, loud enough to turn heads throughout the restaurant. "Are you blind?" Nisha's cheeks flushed. "I'm so sorry, sir. Let me get you some towels right away." "Don't bother," Vikram said, his voice laced with contempt. "Just get someone competent to serve this table. Clearly, the standards here have fallen further than I thought." The restaurant had gone silent. Nisha stood frozen, water pitcher still in hand, her expression carefully composed, despite the public humiliation. "Really, these country resorts hire anyone these days," Vikram continued, addressing his uncomfortable colleagues. "No wonder they're losing business. Basic service training seems beyond their capabilities." Nisha placed the pitcher carefully on the table. "I'll send over another server immediately," she said with quiet dignity. "Again, I apologize for the accident." As she walked away, Vikram noticed one of his junior associates staring at him with poorly disguised disapproval. "What?" he challenged. "You think that level of service is acceptable? This is supposedly a 5-star resort." "It was an accident," she replied. "And you moved your arm into the pitcher." Vikram waved dismissively. "Part of service is anticipating guests' movements. Anyway, let's focus on the presentation tomorrow. I want to impress this Sharma family. Apparently, the old man is grooming his daughter to take over eventually. If we land this account, it's a stepping stone to the Oberoi Group." Across the restaurant, Nisha disappeared through the kitchen doors, her back straight, her steps measured. If anyone had been paying proper attention, they might have noticed how the restaurant manager immediately approached her with concern, or how the chef stepped away from his station to check on her. But Vikram had already moved on, his mind focused on tomorrow's pitch and the career advancement it might bring. As the evening progressed, a new server attended their table. Vikram's mood improved with the wine and the prospect of tomorrow's triumph, never once glancing back at the kitchen doors where Nisha occasionally appeared, watching the table with thoughtful eyes. Tables turned, Vikram strode into the Whispering Pines conference room the following morning with the confidence of someone who had never failed. His presentation materials were impeccable, leather portfolio under one arm, custom slides loaded on his tablet, and his lucky Mont Blanc pen tucked into his breast pocket. He had dressed with particular care, selecting a charcoal suit that projected both authority and creativity. "Good morning." "Mr. Sharma," Vikram greeted the silver-haired man seated at the head of the polished oak table. "I'm looking forward to sharing how Pinnacle advertising can revolutionize your resort's market position." Rajiv Sharma, the resort's owner, nodded cordially. "Before we begin, I'd like you to meet someone important. My daughter and deputy director, Ananya." Vikram turned with his practiced client greeting smile, only for it to freeze on his face. Sitting beside Rajiv Sharma, dressed in a crisp linen blazer and silk blouse, was the waitress from last night. Ananya, looked directly at him, her expression professionally neutral despite the flicker of recognition in her eyes. "We've met," she said simply, extending her hand. Though not formally. "Ananya Sharma." Vikram's hand moved automatically to shake hers, his brain scrambling to process this development. The quiet waitress he had humiliated in front of a restaurant full of people was the resort owner's daughter, the very person he needed to impress today, I believe. "We had a small incident at dinner," she continued, her voice carrying a subtle edge that only Vikram could detect. "Water spills happen. Shall we focus on your proposal?" Rajiv looked between them curiously, but Ananya gave nothing away. Vikram cleared his throat, desperately trying to regain his equilibrium. "Of course. Yes, the proposal." He launched into his presentation, but for the first time in years, Vikram Malhotra was off his game. His usual smooth delivery faltered each time he caught Ananya's evaluative gaze. She took notes occasionally, her pen moving deliberately across the premium leather notebook before her. "Your market analysis shows impressive research," she commented during his breakdown of competitors. "But I notice you've categorized us primarily as a luxury retreat when our heritage and community integration are equally significant brand pillars." Vikram blinked, thrown by the astute observation. Yes, that's a valid point. We could certainly incorporate that aspect more prominently." As the presentation continued, Ananya asked several more pointed questions that revealed not only her intimate knowledge of the resort's operations, but also a sophisticated understanding of marketing principles. Each question subtly highlighted aspects of the business that Vikram had overlooked or dismissed, the very human elements he had considered insignificant. By the time he concluded, Vikram's confidence had been thoroughly shaken. Not only had he publicly berated someone who would help decide his agency's fate, but he had also underestimated her capabilities based on a superficial judgment. "Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Malhotra," Rajiv said. "We'll need some time to discuss it internally before making our decision." Ananya stood, smoothing her blazer. "Would you walk with me to the garden, Mr. Malhotra? I have a few additional questions." Outside in the meticulously maintained garden, with the scent of pine and wildflowers in the air, Ananya turned to face him. Gone was the deferential posture of the waitress. Here stood a woman completely in her element. "Why did you work as a server last night?" Vikram finally asked, the question that had been burning in his mind. "I work every position in this resort on rotation," she replied simply, "from housekeeping to front desk to kitchen duty. It was my father's condition when I joined the business after completing my MBA at Cornell." Vikram's stomach sank further, an Ivy League graduate whom he'd dismissed as incompetent. "You believe you can market our resort effectively?" she continued. "Yet you didn't recognize its heart, the staff who create the experience for our guests. That concerns me." "I apologize for my behavior," Vikram said, the words unfamiliar on his tongue. "It was unprofessional and unkind." Ananya studied him, her expression thoughtful. "Apologies are easy, Mr. Malhotra. Understanding is harder. If you truly want this account, prove you understand what makes Whispering Pines special." "How would I do that?" "Start by seeing what you've been missing," she said cryptically, before turning back toward the main building. As Vikram watched her walk away, he realized that for the first time in his career, simply being clever and polished wouldn't be enough. He would need to become something he'd never bothered with before. Authentic. The humble path 2 weeks after his disastrous pitch meeting, Vikram found himself back at Whispering Pines Resort. Not as a guest or consultant, but dressed in the resort's standard staff uniform. The cotton shirt felt strange against his skin, accustomed as he was to tailored designer fabrics. The employee locker room, with its utilitarian benches and metal compartments, was a far cry from the executive changing rooms at his premium gym. "You actually came back," Ananya said, appearing in the doorway. "I admit I'm surprised." Vikram straightened his name badge. "You challenge me to understand your resort. I'm here to do just that." What had begun as a desperate attempt to salvage a potential client had morphed into something more. A curiosity he couldn't explain. A need to prove himself in ways that had nothing to do with business metrics. "Let's see how long that determination lasts," she said with a hint of skepticism. "Today you'll be working with Deepak in groundskeeping. The next 10 hours were a revelation in physical exhaustion." Vikram's manicured hands developed blisters from raking pine needles and hauling mulch. His designer sunglasses fogged with sweat as he learned to prune the native shrubs that gave the resort its distinctive landscaping. Deepak, a weathered man in his 60s, showed no mercy. "City boy hands," he chuckled, inspecting Vikram's reddened palms. "But good work today. You didn't quit." Through the afternoon, Vikram noticed how guests barely acknowledged him in his uniform, the same people who might have eagerly networked had they known his professional status. It was as though he had become invisible, part of the resort's backdrop rather than its focus. At day's end, muscles aching in places he hadn't known existed, Vikram found Ananya waiting for him near the staff exit. "Impressions?" she asked. "Your head groundskeeper knows more about customer psychology than most marketing executives I've met," Vikram admitted, recalling how Deepak had explained the strategic placement of each bench and viewing point throughout the property. "He creates emotional experiences without guests even realizing it." Something in Ananya's expression softened slightly. "Come back tomorrow if you're serious." Kitchen duty with Chef Raman. Over the following days, Vikram cycled through departments, chopping vegetables alongside kitchen staff, changing linens with housekeeping, carrying luggage as a bellhop. Each role revealed aspects of the resort he had completely overlooked in his marketing assessment. He learned how Mrs. Bhatia in housekeeping remembered every returning guest's pillow preference, how the maintenance team had developed specialized techniques to preserve the original woodwork while keeping it up to code, how Chef Raman sourced ingredients from local farmers, creating economic ripples throughout the community. On his 5th evening, exhausted from a day at the front desk, Vikram found himself sharing dinner with the staff in their cafeteria. The contrast with his first night at the resort's fine dining restaurant couldn't have been more stark, yet the conversation was livelier, the laughter more genuine. "Why is the marketing man still here?" asked Lakshmi, an older woman from the laundry department, her English heavily accented but direct. "You learn enough already, no?" Before Vikram could answer, Ananya appeared, taking a seat across from him with her own tray of staff dinner. "That's a good question," she said, looking at him expectantly. Vikram considered his response carefully. "I thought I knew what luxury meant," he finally said. "Expensive fixtures, exclusive access, premium pricing. But that's not what your guests are paying for, is it? They're paying for belonging, for the feeling that someone remembers them, anticipates them, sees them as individuals rather than transactions." Ananya nodded slowly. "And how would you market that?" "I wouldn't. At least not in the way I originally planned," Vikram admitted. "You don't need flashier advertisements or trendy rebranding. You need to amplify the authentic connections that already exist here." Later, as darkness fell over the mountains, Vikram and Ananya walked along a staff trail that wound behind the main buildings. The night air carried the scent of pine and wood smoke from the resort's fire pit. "My father started as a housekeeper," Ananya said unexpectedly. "He saved for 15 years to buy his first small hotel. When he could finally afford to build this place, he insisted I learn every position before taking any management role." "You could have told me who you were that night at the restaurant," Vikram said. "Would it have changed how you treated me?" she asked. Or would it simply have changed who you pretended to be? The question hung between them, uncomfortably perceptive. I've been successful by being exactly who clients expect, Vikram admitted. I'm not sure I know how to be anything else. Perhaps that's what you're really learning here, Ananya said softly. And perhaps that's why you keep coming back. As they reached a viewpoint overlooking the valley below, Vikram realized with startling clarity that she was right. He wasn't just here for the account anymore. Growing roots summer faded into autumn, painting the mountains surrounding whispering pines in brilliant oranges and golds. Vikram's weekend visits to the resort had become a constant in his otherwise changing life. Back in the city, his colleagues had noticed the difference. He listened more in meetings, questioned assumptions he once would have glossed over, and surprisingly, his client retention had improved. Today marked his 8th visit, and for the first time he arrived not as staff, but as a consultant. Ananya had finally agreed to revisit his marketing proposal, now completely reimagined after his experiences. The authentic luxury campaign emphasizes connections over amenities, Vikram explained as they walked the property. Each advertisement features a genuine story, from your staff, like how Deepak designed the sunrise viewpoint, after watching his wife enjoy her morning tea there for 20 years. Ananya nodded appreciatively. You've captured something real. But will it resonate with our target demographic? Luxury consumers expect a certain polish. That's where we bridge the gap, Vikram replied, stopping to show her mock-ups on his tablet. We pair these authentic stories with stunning visuals that capture the emotional experience. It's not about selling perfection. It's about selling meaning. As they rounded the hiking trail that led to the resort's hidden waterfall, a comfortable silence fell between them. What had begun as professional redemption had evolved into something neither had anticipated, a friendship built on mutual challenge and respect. My agency gave me the quarter off, Vikram said suddenly. Mandatory sabbatical after 7 years of service. 3 whole months? Ananya raised an eyebrow. What will the great Vikram Malhotra do without deadlines and client meetings? He hesitated, then took a chance. I was thinking of renting the writer's cabin on the north edge of your property. I could help implement the marketing plan, learn more about resort operations, maybe even write that novel I've been talking about. Ananya stopped walking, studying his face with uncharacteristic openness. You'd trade city life for a cabin in the woods? For 3 months? I would, he said simply. If that's all right with you? Something shifted in her expression. Surprise, followed by a careful smile. The cabin needs work. The roof leaks when it rains. I've become surprisingly handy these past few months, Vikram replied with a laugh, though Deepak might disagree. October brought crisp mornings and the quiet season at Whispering Pines. Vikram settled into the writer's cabin, his designer clothes gradually replaced by flannel and denim. His mornings began with coffee on the porch, watching mist rise from the valley below. Afternoons were split between implementing the new marketing strategy and helping wherever needed around the resort. You're the first marketing director who's ever fixed a toilet? Rajiv commented one evening, finding Vikram emerging from a guest cabin with a toolbox. My daughter chose wisely. She didn't exactly choose me, Vikram demurred. She challenged me. Same thing in Ananya's world, the older man replied with a knowing smile. As the weeks passed, Vikram found himself seeking Ananya's company with increasing frequency. They debated business theories over breakfast, hiked mountain trails on quiet afternoons, and sometimes simply worked in companionable silence in the resort's library. He learned that beneath her composed exterior lay a sharp wit and unexpected vulnerability, especially regarding her future role as the resort's leader. Everyone expects me to be exactly like my father, she confided. One evening as they sat by the fire pit, stars scattered across the mountain sky. But I have different ideas for our future. Like what? Vikram asked, genuinely curious. Expansion, but not in the traditional sense. Creating a network of small, authentic experiences throughout the region rather than building larger properties. Supporting local businesses instead of competing with them. That's brilliant, Vikram said. Community-integrated luxury is the future. She turned to him, firelight playing across her features. You actually understand. Most consultants would push for whatever increases short-term profits. I'm not most consultants anymore, he replied. Thanks to you. The moment hung between them, weighted with unspoken potential. Ananya looked away first, but not before Vikram caught the hint of a smile. The Harvest Festival is next weekend in the village, she said after a moment. Would you like to come? It's nothing fancy. Local food, traditional music, probably too much homemade apple cider. Sounds perfect, Vikram said, realizing with surprising clarity that he meant it. The man who once measured experiences by their exclusivity now found himself looking forward to a village celebration, and, more importantly, to experiencing it with her. As they walked back toward the main lodge, their hands brushed accidentally. Neither pulled away. Full circle. The winter sun cast long shadows across Whispering Pines Resort as Vikram supervised the installation of the new welcome sign. After 6 months of splitting his time between the city and the mountains, he had finally made his decision. Pinnacle Advertising would continue without him. The mountains had become home. Mr. Malhotra? A nervous young man in a staff uniform approached. I'm Rohan, your new marketing assistant. Ms. Sharma told me to report to you. Vikram smiled, recognizing the anxious eagerness in Rohan's expression, a mirror of his own past self. First day? First job in marketing, Rohan admitted. I was working in housekeeping, but Ms. Sharma said I had potential after seeing my ideas for the guest welcome packages. She has an eye for talent, Vikram replied. Let's start with a tour, not of the resort facilities, but of the people who make this place special. As they walked the grounds, Vikram introduced Rohan to staff members by name, sharing stories and insights about each person's contribution to the guest experience. The young man listened attentively, occasionally fumbling with his notebook. At the kitchen entrance, Rohan accidentally bumped into a server carrying a tray of glasses, sending several tumbling to the ground with a crash. I'm so sorry, Rohan exclaimed, his face flushing with embarrassment. I wasn't looking where... No harm done, Vikram interrupted calmly, already kneeling to help gather the broken glass. Accidents happen to everyone. Let's get this cleaned up together. Relief washed over Rohan's face as Vikram handled the situation without drama or reprimand. Neither noticed Ananya watching from the hallway, a smile playing at her lips. Later that evening, as snow began to fall outside, Vikram found Ananya in her office reviewing quarterly reports. Your new assistant seems promising, she said without looking up, though a bit clumsy. Reminds me of someone I used to know, Vikram replied with a self-deprecating smile. Ananya finally met his gaze. The board approved my community integration proposal. We'll be partnering with 5 village businesses this spring, including that pottery studio you discovered. That's wonderful news, Vikram said, genuinely pleased. Deepak's wife will be thrilled to showcase her work here. Ananya set aside her papers and came around the desk. I received an interesting call today. Luxury Travel magazine wants to feature Whispering Pines in their Authentic Experiences issue. Apparently, our new marketing approach has caught their attention. Well-deserved recognition, Vikram replied. Your father must be proud. He is. Though he's more interested in when I'm going to give him grandchildren than in magazine features, she laughed, then immediately looked embarrassed by the implication. Vikram took a careful step closer. I've been meaning to ask you something. Professional or personal? She asked, her voice softening. Definitely personal, he admitted. That day in the restaurant, when I was at my absolute worst, why did you give me another chance? Ananya considered the question. I saw someone hiding behind a perfect facade. I wanted to know if there was something real beneath it. And what did you find? Someone worth waiting for, she said simply. Someone who could learn to see people, not just opportunities. Someone who fixed a toilet despite having an MBA from Harvard. Vikram laughed. That toilet was a humbling experience. You needed humbling, she teased, moving closer. Outside the window, snowflakes danced in the golden light spilling from the resort windows. Inside, Vikram reached for Ananya's hand, No longer the arrogant executive or the humbled student, but simply a man who had found what truly mattered. "Do you remember what you said to me that first day in the garden?" he asked. "It's easy to be kind when you know someone's background. Harder when you don't." "You remembered." "I've been trying to live by those words ever since," he said softly, as their lips met in a gentle kiss. Vikram reflected on the unlikely journey that had brought him here, from a spilled glass of water to a changed life. He had arrived seeking a client and found instead a home, a purpose, and a love built not on superficial charm, but on the hardest lesson he'd ever learned. Seeing people for who they truly were, not for what they could offer him. Outside, the mountains stood witness, unchanging and eternal, as two people who might never have truly met found each other at last.